Hey there. I am really excited about today's lesson because I know everybody has been working really hard at teaching their horse their groundwork lessons and getting some good relaxation, some good discipline, and you yourself have been working on your rhythm and learning your horse's rhythm. And I know you've all been working really hard at developing your horses and your own core strength with that sitting trot and hopefully having a good time cantering. So today, what I want to do with you is talk to you about response training and then trick training. Okay, so the response training is something that we've touched on a little bit in one of our earlier lessons where we taught our horse to press, when we press their neck, that they should put their head down. So that's a trick, but we're going to use that trick to help us teach our horses to respond in a way that is like a coping mechanism for them for when something is causing them stress or an anxiety. They know that they can relax and calm themselves down. Okay, and then after we talk about response training, I'm going to show you a trick that is a very practical trick. So not only are tricks fun to teach your horse, but there are some that are actually very useful. So I'm going to show you how to teach your horse to draw her haunches towards you, and you'll use that for mounting, and in future lessons we'll use that to teach her how to do her travers and renvers, her haunches in and out. Okay? So if you're excited to learn a little bit about response training and trick training, make sure you hit that thumbs up button for me, and we'll go ahead and get started. Come on over here, buddy. I'm just going to put a spree over here so that you can see her neck. Remember, in that second groundwork class that we did, I showed you the trick of push on the neck and then the horse drops their head down. So that was the first trick that I ever taught a spree. And if you remember, the idea was I gave her the cue, which was to push on her neck, which she didn't know what that meant at first. So then I had to ask her physically to put her head down by putting pressure on her rope. Okay? So now we're going to just take that relax button just one step further. I'm going to create a little bit of pressure that a spree might not like. And I'm going to teach her that when there's a loud noise or a movement that she doesn't like, that she should put her neck down and relax. Okay? We mentioned also in that groundwork lesson, the reason why we want to teach our horse to put their neck down and relax is because when they get their neck down, their heart rate goes down and they can relax, right? So when we know that a horse gets upset, their reaction is head up, their body gets really tense, their heart rate gets high, okay? So if we're riding them and we're in a situation that's a little bit nerve-wracking, we don't want them to get high and with a high heart rate. We want to teach them just to relax and calm down, okay? So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to create a little bit of noise. This is just a bottle filled with rocks. And a spree might not like the noise at first, and she'll pick her head up. She has a tendency sometimes to get a little bit nervous and then come towards the thing that's making her nervous. So, but what my expectation of her is, she's going to get a little bit nervous, and then I'm going to tell her with my calm down button that she should put her head and neck down, and when she does, then I'll stop making the noise, okay? So I'm going to make pressure. As soon as she gives me the right response, which is putting her neck down, I'll stop the pressure. So you want to be careful about the noise. Well, any of these, you're going to always present these things to your horse on their left side. And if your horse is more reactive than others, you're just going to start off quietly. Like she's already just curious about the bottle of rocks. But if you had a very reactive horse, you would just start it off quietly like that. Well, she is clearly not being overly reactive, so I'm going to make a lot of noise with it so that it gets her maybe a little bit jazzed up, and then see if she can figure out the right response. So I'm going to, right, and I'm going to remind her the right answer, and that's okay. So she's upset by the rock, so I'm going to keep the noise going until she gets the right answer, which is neck down. And then as soon as she puts her head down, I stop the noise. So I'm just going to give her a moment to relax, that head down. We want to make sure that they keep it down there long enough that their heart rate does actually go down. And then I'm going to try again and see if she can come up with the right answer a little sooner. Just a little reminder that we have to stay calm when we're working. Good. So she knows the right answer today. She's just being a little more reactive than usual, which is great for this demonstration, that she did get upset by the noise of the rocks. She tried to move away from it. As soon as she was being anxious and moving and not listening to me, I kept the noise going. And as soon as she got the right answer, which is put your neck down, I stopped making the noise. So now what you're going to probably be thinking at this point is, well, what if I'm riding in the indoor in the wintertime and the snow's falling off the roof? I can't stop the snow from falling off the roof. You can't stop the disturbing thing from happening all the time. But if you practice this enough, your horse starts to understand that if they keep their neck down and they stay relaxed in these situations, it feels a lot better physically for them to stay relaxed. And then they can listen to you and that you can help them get through that situation safely. Okay, so now Esprit's very relaxed and keeping her head down. So what you would do in this particular situation is once she's okay with it over here, good, you can start moving closer towards her hind end. You can do up over the top of her. The horse's most vulnerable place is up over the top of their neck. So once your horse is really good at the response, then you can start bringing it up over top of their head. So you want to remember, this is not something that you have to accomplish all in one day. Just introduce it, see if you can get your horse to put their head down by just adding a little bit of pressure, and then maybe come back to it the next day and add on from there. We also want to make sure with this exercise, just like any other, that we do it on our horse's right side as well. Now, Esprit has a tendency to be much more reactive on this side of her body. So I should really be practicing doing more with her from the right side of her. So I'm just going to... And she was curious about it. Instead of freaking out and moving, she turned and looked towards it. So that is also a sign of relaxation. So I stopped the rocks because she turned and looked to her, and now she's soft and relaxed. So I'm just going to try it with the noise one more time over this side. I'll let her have a second to process that and relax, and then we'll just try again. Good. All the way down. So we make sure that when they put their head down, that is the right answer. We took the noise away, but we want to make sure she doesn't just nod the thing away, that she puts her head down and really takes a breath and relaxes. All right, so for response training, you can use noise. You can actually do movement and touch as well. So this is a good method if you have a horse that doesn't like taking worming medicine. If you have a horse like Esprit who turns into a flesh-eating monster when the vet comes to try to give her a shot, you can use this method to help them relax for something like that. So when we're talking about having to touch them with something, like for instance, Esprit doesn't like syringes, she doesn't love the vet, so before the vet comes, we practice with the syringe. I make sure she sees it, I press it on her neck. When she puts her neck down, I take the syringe away and eventually start putting more and more pressure on her. So she realizes that little pinch hurts less if her neck is soft and relaxed as opposed to tight and trying to kill everybody around her, right? So she's learning to be a little bit better about getting her blood drawn and getting her shots by using this method, this response training. But you can start off the touch training with a grocery bag attached to a little riding crop. You can start off by kind of touching it to their face and rubbing it on their face. And again, taking it always on their left side first. And she doesn't seem overly bothered by this. I think Esprit relates grocery bags with goodies. So she's not really overly upset about it, but I gave her the right answer there. She did a little And we got to get her to pay attention to me. But now I'm going to touch her and see if she can. Go ahead. Relax a little on her own. She came down and around. She was curious, so I took it away because instead of freaking out, she just looked at it and relaxed. Okay, so we won't get too much. That's the basic idea of response training. So you can do sound, movement, and touch. Like if your horse is afraid of the dressage whip and you feel like you've been having some trouble with doing the groundwork exercises because your horse doesn't like a whip, you can use the same method to get your horse used to a whip as well. So you teach them to put their head down. You can gently just rub the whip on them and teach them when the whip touches them and they put their head down, you take that whip away. And when they're good at it, yeah, you just keep doing that. And you can work your way so that you can touch them all over their body with the whip and they're not afraid of it. They know that you're just using it as a tool, that you're not going to hurt them with it. And that as long as they stay relaxed, that whip goes away. Okay? So that was the serious part. There's your response training. I think, again, like the lunging lesson, we could probably do a whole series on response training. So hopefully you get the basic idea of how that works and how you can use it, like I said, either for getting your horse used to taking a worming medicine or any kind of medicine that you have to put in their mouth, being relaxed when they have to get a shot. Some horses hate fly spray. You can use the same idea to get them used to being sprayed with a bottle of fly spray or even the hose, okay? So now I want to get into a little bit more fun with a little trick training. I'm going to show you how to teach your horse a very practical trick, which is to draw their haunches to you, okay? This is something that I normally take at least 2 days to teach a horse. Because you want to just teach them a little bit, you don't want to drill it, so you just want to teach the beginnings of it and then come back the next day and see if you can do a little bit more. So some horses learn it in just a couple of days and other horses take a little bit longer. So as usual, we're just going to do the best we can with what we have and be patient with yourself and your horse. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring Esprit over here to this wall and I'm going to show you how to teach her to bring those haunches over towards you. So as we mentioned before, when you teach a horse a trick, you need to give them the cue for the trick first. And at first, when you do this with your horse is obviously not going to know what that cue means. So then you have to give them the practical example and physically show them what it means. So the cue for the trick, this trick of bringing her haunches over, is I'm going to bring the whip up and point it at her croup. So you see, Esprit already knows this trick. If I touch her croup, she'll bring her haunches towards me. But the way I showed her that that's what that meant was I started walking backwards down the wall and got a little forward momentum going. I'm going to push her head towards the wall a little bit, and then I'm going to give her the cue. And then I'm going to slow that shoulder down and keep the haunches moving. And because I stopped the front end of her, her hind leg had nowhere else to go but to come in, okay? Come on, buddy. So she gave me a couple of good steps, so I'm going to walk away, and I'm going to try that again. So every horse is a little bit different. So some horses have lots of natural forward movement, and some horses like to kind of get tight and stiff and stop, especially once you raise that whip up. So a horse like Esprit who kind of keeps going a little is sort of easy to teach because you can just stop the front end and ask the hind legs to come over. And she just swings that haunch over because her front end doesn't have anywhere else to go. If you get a horse that's a little bit nervous because you made the whip come up like that, they might tighten their back and stop all 4 feet. And in that case, you want to just keep that shoulder over to the wall and maybe tap them on the croup to encourage those back feet to start to move again while you keep the shoulders still. So once your horse is really good at that, when you're moving, then you can stop on the wall. Once they have the idea that this means bring your haunches over. You can try it just from the halt. I'm going to hold under Espri's chin so she a little bit looks towards the wall. I'm going to raise the whip up and say, Esprit, can you come here? And just tap or give her that kiss so she knows to move her feet. And then she comes right over, and you can see that she presents the side of her to me where she would wear a saddle and I could get on. So now that we've practiced and she knows that that whip up means bring your haunches over, I can see if I can take it a little bit away from the wall. Obviously, the reason I put her up against the wall in the first place was to eliminate the answer of her moving her haunches away from the whip. So the wall just stops her from getting that wrong answer. I want her haunches towards me. And see, this time I didn't need the wall because she really understands that when I put the whip up and point it at her croup, she needs to come over. And then, once she's good at that, we are going to try it while we are standing up on something. So instead of going right to the mounting block, I like to just use a little block like this. So I'm up a little bit higher than the horse is used to, but not too high. I'm going to bring her over back a little bit. And I want her to stand off to my left side a little bit so that when I ask her to bring her haunches over, she comes over so that she ends up right here where her saddle would be. If she had a saddle on, I could hop right up there, okay? And then once she's really good at that, then you can take them over to the mounting block. And I will get my mounting block. Okay, so then I want to try it next to the mounting block. Now, depending on your horse, again, horse's temperament, if your horse has a tendency to be a little jumpy, a little reactive, you can use the mounting block and stand next to it to start and ask them to come over. There, as soon as they do the right thing, the tapping stops. Can you back up a little? And then you can proceed to climb up on the mounting block and give them a nice pat. Ultimately, you want to keep working on this trick until you can stand on top of the mounting block and ask her to come over. I'm going to bring her over here. Ask her to halt. I'm going to stand up on the block and ask her to come over. All the way over so that, if she had a saddle on, I could hop right up there. So I like to make sure that when the horses are learning this trick and they come over nicely, that you give them a nice scratch on the withers. Esprit loves it. You can see by her face. That's a nice treat for her to get a nice scratch on the wither. Okay, so as you can see, that is a really good trick. Not only will you impress your friends at the barn that your horse can present themselves to the mounting block, but it comes in very handy if you go to a horse show and forget your mounting block, which I usually do. Or if you're out on a trail ride, you don't have a mounting block, maybe you can find a rock or whatever. It's a good handy trick to have. But in future groundwork classes, as I mentioned earlier, we are going to teach our horse how to do their haunches in and even their half pass and a little turn on the haunches because they know to bring those haunches towards us. So it's a very useful thing to teach your horse to bring the haunches to the whip when you place the whip up. Okay, so I'm going to ask Sarah and Bastian to come in. So now that we've been very serious, here's the fun part. We are going to challenge you to try to find a trick that is fun to teach your horse, that maybe it doesn't have any practical use, but it's just fun, okay? Jane, will you bring me a couple of cookies? So one thing that I liked to do at least once a week is just to have some kind of goof off time with my horse, because it's really important that you take time to have a little bit of fun with your horse and not always be so serious. So if you're having a day where maybe you had a bad day at work or a bad day at school and you just need to get cheered up a little bit, maybe you could just do some of this kind of work with your horse so that you can just have a little fun and find your inner child And then of course, like I said, we want to impress all of our friends at the barn. So we're gonna show you how to teach a trick that involves a treat. So obviously Esprit is excited for this and she just wants the treat. But when she was very young, I taught Esprit how to smile. So again, we need to give her the cue, which is, Esprit, can you smile? And I would just touch her nose so her lip would go up. And because she's young and she's pretty instinctual, it didn't take much to get her to put her lip up. So she got this really quickly. Esprit, can you smile? Smile for everyone. Big smile, big smile. Oh, come on, big smile. There we go. And then she gets the treat. I know. And then if you see Bastion over there, he can turn around so face the camera. One of the first tricks that I ever taught Bastion was how to give a kiss. So everybody loves this treat because he's super sweet. He's kind of a ladies' man. He is the reason why I learned all this groundwork. Can I switch with you? I like to call him my continuing ed horse. All the traditional dressage training scared him. I scared him. I needed to learn a different way to communicate with Bastion. So that's why I know all this groundwork business. And I incorporated trick training into his training as well because it's a really good way to teach your horse how to learn things. And he really enjoys it. So for him, he knows how to give he knows a lot of tricks, but he knows how to give a kiss. So the cue for giving a kiss is just to lean over and say, Bastion, can I have a kiss? And he gives a kiss. So the way that I taught him that was basically give him the cue, leaned over, asked him for a kiss, and then physically took his head and brought it to my face so that he would give a kiss. Now, this is not a trick that you want to teach every horse, okay? Bastion just happens to be very nice and gentle about it. If you have a horse like Esprit, I probably will never teach her that because she's kind of a monster about treats, and there might be a lot of people with fat lips or bloody noses if we teach Esprit that, okay? So we do want to make sure that that is one that you are careful about teaching. So another trick that Bastion knows is how to give a bow. Can you take a bow? You take a big bow, big bow. Come on. Good boy. And then I'll switch, well, both Bastion and Esprit, if you, I don't have a whip, but know how to do the Spanish walk. And Jane will bring us some more cookies. Come on, no, you don't get a cookie yet. So this is something we will go over in later. Come on, up. Groundwork classes is teaching your horse to lift the legs. So this is fun, but it does indeed have a practical reason in your future to help you teach your horse piaffe and passage. Can I hand them to you? And then we'll just let Esprit show off her beautiful shoulders and her Spanish walk. And again, she's very enthusiastic when it comes to the cookies, but she can, up. Oh, come on. This one too. Up, up, there we go. So she can do her Spanish walk. So those are just a few examples. There's a ton of tricks that you can teach your horse. One last thing we wanted to show you is how that they can push the ball. Okay, so we're gonna go get the ball and show you that. That's another really fun one to do with your horse. We here at White Spruce Farms do a groundwork class every Wednesday night where we go over all our groundwork exercises. And then at the end, we goof off a little, and the horses push the ball back and forth. Go ahead, push the ball. There. And because they push the ball, they get a treat. Some of the horses that have been doing the pushing the ball a little bit longer no longer get the treat. They actually have fun passing it back and forth to each other. So see if we can get Bastion to pass it to Esprit. Oh, come on, buddy. There we go. And she can Try pushing it back. Oh, she's more interested in him. Okay. So anyway, that's another really fun trick that you can do with your horse. So my challenge for you for this lesson is to find a trick that you want to teach your horse. And I'm hoping that some of you will think to videotape yourself and your horse performing the trick and share it with us at White Spruce Farms Facebook page. So I hope you like this video. Again, if you haven't already, please subscribe and let me know how you're doing. And I hope you have fun with your trick training. Thanks for watching.